let's have a serious discussion, because honestly, I have so many mixed feelings about this character and I just think she's quite overhyped. Today's video is actually a deep dive into the character of Maddy from Euphoria, because there are not enough videos about her specifically on YouTube and I wanted to add to the discussion. I want the best for her, but I think the show did her dirty at multiple points, and we're gonna talk about why. The portrayal of Maddy in an unhealthy / abusive relationship, the spicy Latina trope, and I'm going to be as balanced as I can because I understand that some of you guys are obsessed with her, and there will be people that are seriously angry if I'm like, I don't like her. I can imagine the comments already, so hold your horses. I'm not here for that. I'm here to give a balanced review. I hope you're loving the backdrop today because obviously it's coming up to Halloween and I was just really feeling the vibes. So I've got this hair accessory which is actually like bats, which is just really cute. I don't know if you can see them. This show is quite entertaining. It's a bit pretentious, but it is visually gorgeous and I do like quite a lot of the characters, even though it's not my favorite show ever. It has some redeeming parts of it. Just to ease us into it, let's talk about what I do like about Maddy, what she has going for her. She has been called an it girl lately, especially the actress who plays her, Alexa. Everyone is obsessed with, including myself. I also like that Maddy's the typical popular girl who's a cheerleader at high school and can stand up for herself, but yet she doesn't go around actively picking on people who aren't popular or being like, oh my god guys, here are the high school cliques, which clique are you in, and being really annoying. She's not a stereotype and I appreciate that about her. Also, normally the mean girls pick their friends purely based on who's popular and who makes them feel good, but it's all very shallow, whereas Maddy picks her friends because she genuinely likes spending time with them and she doesn't really care if you're popular or not. She doesn't mind being associated with you if you're less popular. Hi mom! Maddy, I think, is quite an important character for representing that anyone, no matter what you look like or how confident you are, anyone can be taken advantage of or end up in a toxic or even abusive relationship. And I'm aware that she wasn't a complete angel or whatever in her relationship. And obviously she was doing some manipulative stuff or getting involved in enjoying the drama, but she was nowhere near as bad as he was with how he treated her. For one, she never held a gun to his head in some sort of sick game. She did not deserve to be treated the way that he treated her. That's an important message too, because sometimes we have these preconceived ideas of what a victim looks like. A quote that really makes me sad is, it wasn't the violence that scared her, it was the fact that no matter what he did, she'd still love him. During Maddy and Nate's relationship, when he can't control her through playing mind games with her, when she's standing up to him or she's like, I'll wear what I want, or I'll dress to meet your family how I want, or she's doing anything to oppose him, he starts using violence and physical force to try and get the message through to her. She also has no idea about what a healthy relationship actually looks like. Maybe one of the reasons is that her parents have a very passionless, boring marriage, and maybe she's just terrified about ending up like them. So she thinks that if there's fighting and emotion and intensity, at least that means the other person cares. So that means it's love. You know what they say, love and hate are quite closely linked. It's better than being apathetic and not giving a shit at all. That's far more disturbing. That's why people get so annoyed when you ghost them or when you go silent on them or when you don't answer their question, because it's like detaching from the situation altogether, which feels like far more of a rejection because you're refusing to engage. Also, another reason I connect to her is just purely out of pity and feeling bad for her. Like, I cannot imagine getting out of a really toxic relationship with this guy and then my best friend going behind my back and dating him and not telling me about it. Like, man, that must suck to lose your boyfriend and your best friend all in one go. It wasn't really a love triangle. I don't know what you call it. It was just sort of there. After watching Twilight so many times and everything, I'm like, if I see one more love triangle, or the episodes I have seen of the Vampire Diaries, I'm like, oh my god, oh, it's just too messy and gross. And honestly, in the first season, I remember thinking that Maddy and Cassie didn't even seem that close in the first place. Do they seem like friends? Absolutely. Does their relationship seem particularly deep? No. Like that scene where they were in the dressing room and they were like, oh my god, I'm so hot. Yeah, slay, or whatever. They were just hyping each other up. I mean, come on, best friends? I don't know. Because in season 1, it felt like Maddy was actually closer to Kat. They were the ones having sleepovers and they were the ones calling each other immediately when they were having a problem. Another reason that I didn't love this Cassie, Nate, Maddy drama was the way it reflected on Cassie, because crying constantly, trying to get sympathy got really annoying after a while. There were just so many scenes of her whinging and moaning and crying. And then she keeps saying, I'm so sorry, oh my God, I can't believe we just did that. Maddy's my best friend, she's my best friend, while continuing to do what she was doing and not stopping, trying to get sympathy from people so she doesn't actually need to accept responsibility for anything. And I just don't like that. And her copying Maddy's style and behavior was so beyond pathetic, not on. And I was thinking more about it recently and I just felt bad for Maddy. Like in that scene where Cassie's trying to seem cool and she's saying to Nate, I'm crazier than Maddy. It's like she thinks that because Maddy's kind of a bit crazy in her mind, maybe she needs to behave like that because that's what Nate wants, because it's like she was playing a role or trying to be what she thinks Nate will like. And the whole thing's just so icky to me. And her copying Maddy's style, I don't see that as a compliment. I see it as insulting because she's not acknowledging that it's Maddy's idea. Nah, I'm just not here for it. That's not what a real friend does. Your friend is meant to be your ally, not your competitor. Even when Cassie got up on stage in the finale and she was like, oh, you guys want me to be the bad guy? I can be the villain, I can be the bad guy. Maddy's always making really big public scenes and drawing attention to herself. So maybe again, Cassie's trying to be cool. And in terms of Maddy and Nate's dynamic, a lot of people think that they're toxic, but in a cute way, because Nate seems to care about her more than he's cared about other girls or something, or because he keeps coming back to her. But that means absolutely nothing to me. He's literally just doing it to prove to himself that he can have whichever girl he wants. Rue's narration states, it wasn't the 38 missed calls from Cassie that concerned him. It was the fact that there were 0 calls from Maddy. So there we go. That's not love, but it's possession and ownership. Like to him, Cassie's so freaking boring. She's so predictable that I don't think he would ever really take her seriously in the long term. He knows that no matter what he does, she'll always just be waiting around for him. Whereas Maddy is like mysterious. That's why Maddy just going silent on him makes him so nervous. Basically, he hates women is what I'm trying to say. I'm making it sound so complicated. Just here's the message of the story. He hates women. His ego cannot take a powerful woman. Interesting, some people were saying that they felt like the writers were being overly harsh on Maddy or putting her through too much, because obviously he was physically violent with Maddy, but he never got like physically violent with Cassie. He was imagining a future with Cassie, thinking, oh, what if I got her pregnant, or I can imagine marrying this girl or whatever. And the only difference between the two women obviously is that Cassie is fair and blonde and blue-eyed and Maddy isn't. And I get why that would bother people like 100%, but at the same time, like it's hardly as if he treated Cassie well. There was one scene where he did get physically aggressive with Cassie. Before they even dated, he spent years making fun of her and calling her a slut. And also, him and Cassie have only just started dating, so I wouldn't be surprised if he started getting repeatedly physically violent with her in season 3. I just don't think he needed to be that violent with her at that stage, because she was such a pushover anyway. It kind of seemed pointless, whereas Maddy was almost intentionally enjoying pushing his buttons and provoking him. He feels threatened by her. He was treating Cassie terribly, like driving super fast in that car and freaking her out, love bombing her and saying he liked her, and then immediately pulling back. And then at school, she was trying to get his attention and he was completely icing her out and ignoring her. Cassie's desperation to seek male approval is an important message about the patriarchy and stuff like that, and how male feelings are always seen as so important. And so she bases her entire self-worth off how many guys are interested in her and being desperate to please them to the point that she's draining herself. All of that is just so relevant, I guess, and relatable. And so I do sympathize with her, but at the same time, I don't see her as a victim in the same way that I see Maddy as a victim. Maddy said to Cassie, this is not about Nate, this is about you and me and our friendship, which highlights that for Maddy, she's really bothered by the fact that Cassie was lying to her and being so deceptive. I don't want this to be about pitting the two women against each other and are you team Maddy or team Cassie? Who gives a shit? The common denominator here is Nate. He's the overall big bad guy in my eyes. He is so scary and awful. And I'm so sick of seeing people on TikTok being like, oh my God, he's so cute, marry me. Like, get some self-respect, ladies, please. Nate should know better. He also was involved in like dating Cassie, not just Cassie. It's not like Cassie stole him from Maddy. Like Nate was very much involved in going after Cassie and pursuing her, okay? Like he was making moves. Technically he betrayed McKay because McKay and Cassie were dating, McKay and Nate were friends, and now Nate is dating McKay's ex, and surely that's breaking some kind of bro code, right? So we should be just as mad at Nate as we are at Cassie. In fact, we should be more mad at him. And it always makes me sad that Cassie is being like messed around by McKay in season 1. She's publicly humiliated at the school play. Her nudes are leaked around. All of this, people are constantly harping on at her. And then what actually happens to Nate? He'd better be punished big time soon, because him getting beat up one time just does not suffice. Especially when you look at, let's say, the Twilight movies, right? With the two guys, the werewolf and the vampire, fighting over Bella, the girl. It's very much romanticized, like, look at these cute men, which one will she choose? They're so brave, let's see them fight and try and win her heart, and it's seen as like this bold gesture of love. But when two women are fighting over a guy, it's seen as petty, pathetic, and like a cat fight, or one of them stealing the other's man. So it's all very much rooted in like a lot of misogyny. Now, to be fair, with this situation, it wasn't so much about Maddy and Cassie fighting over a guy, because Maddy doesn't want him. So it's not like, I want him, no, I want him. It wasn't like that. But at the same time, in the school play at the end, in the finale, Maddy gets pissed off at Cassie because Cassie's making a scene, embarrassing herself. Maddy could have left her to it, but Maddy got so pissed off that she ran and slapped Cassie and chased her around. And as much as Cassie 100% needed to be humbled and she deserved a slap, it really annoyed me that she went off and did that and didn't go and slap Nate or something too. Do you know what I mean? Or at least scream at him in front of everyone. Like, again, Cassie's the center of attention of being punished and Nate's just chilling there. I don't know. Cassie was being emotionally manipulated by Nate in this relationship and love bombed. All of these abuse tactics and red flags were very much there. So I was like, okay, but Nate though, can we not forget about Nate? Now I want to discuss why I don't like the character of Maddy, because everyone's really obsessed with Maddy, and it was one of the reasons why it kind of annoyed me. In season 1, people were praising her for doing absolutely nothing, or sometimes even behaving in a disrespectful way, and people were thinking it was sexy or something. Especially in season 1 with how she was treating Kat, I was like, that's a bit disrespectful. I don't love it. That's why I'm saying it's pretty privilege. And even in Rue's voiceover, she says, for as long as Maddy could remember, everybody loved her. She never knew exactly what it was. She just knew that she had something special, something immeasurable, and she had that confidence. And I love that. I love to see a confident woman, for once on screen, who's not told to be beautiful and not realize it, or told to be humble. I like it when a woman knows she's hot. I know I'm hot. I'm not going to apologize for it or pretend I'm not and be like, oh my god, I had no idea, that's crazy, oh my god. I love that Maddy owns it, but sometimes it borders on arrogance as opposed to confidence. For instance, when she was younger, could be quite violent, like beating people up as a kid, and I think it was meant to be funny, but I was like, Jesus, was the physical violence really warranted? Unless they hit her first, in that case, okay, fair enough, but you know what I mean? And when she was at the party, Cassie was passed out in the bathtub, and someone said, oh my god, there's a girl passed out in that bathtub, and Maddy was like, so who cares? I was like, Maddy, shouldn't you be checking on her? What if some guy came in, saw an unconscious girl, and then did something to her? Or what if she choked to death in her own vomit, or she was dead or something from a drug? I don't know, like, wouldn't you care a bit? And again, there are some scenes where they're just not very well written, like in terms of continuity and character development. For instance, Nate breaks into Maddy's place and threatens her with a gun, which is terrifying and extremely traumatizing, but then the aftermath of the scene is skimmed over, and we don't really get to see the long-term effect on Maddy, which is still so bizarre to me. She has this role model, Samantha, in season 2, who gives her advice about being better and growing out of needing dark relationships and all this, so I wanted to see Maddy put that advice into action. And so after fighting Cassie in the finale, I really wanted to see this conversation in heart to heart, but the camera cuts away to a different scene, and then we miss that whole conversation, which is like the most important part. So we see the physical altercation, but not the conversation. And then when we cut back, it's sort of the end of the conversation, but we just missed so much. And that was what we were all looking forward to, and we didn't get to see it. If she was more level-headed maybe about it, or doing something differently, I wouldn't know, which is a real shame, because that could have been a moment of character character development there. Another thing I don't like about Maddy, which bless her is not her fault, it's just unfortunately something that happened to her, but it's how she plays into the spicy Latina trope. This show, by the way, is not as diverse as people think it is. I think I said that in my season 2 video, but there are a lot of stereotypes, not just in terms of Maddy, I'm not trying to be too harsh on her, but I mean in general with trans representation or race or plus-sized women, like there are some issues there. Kat in season 1 is having this whole arc around becoming confident and realizing that no matter how big or small or thin or whatever she is, that she can still get attention, that she can still feel good on herself, be confident. So she feels pressurized to take her top off and stuff because she feels like any attention's good attention because otherwise she won't get any. She became a webcam sugar baby to literally feel desired and get attention because male validation was seen as so important to her. Like she's measuring her own self-worth based on how many looks, how many compliments did I get, how many guys want to sleep with me. Because apparently we're told men are so freaking important that we need that feedback from them. Then she starts having a lot of casual sex and she thought that maybe it would mean they cared about her or they wanted her, when really a lot of them aren't even really focused on her pleasure. They're just sort of like, whatever, let's get this over and done with. But she's getting it mixed up and taking it as a compliment because she's so desperate to be desired. And I was really hoping that we would see her come to not a shallow idea of confidence, but a true understanding of what confidence meant to her. And that could have been a really inspiring message. But the problem is that the story frames this whole webcam illegal thing and the casual sex as something like empowering, like look at me everyone, but I actually found it really quite sad. I didn't find it that empowering. Then these guys are trying to sleep with her and it's almost like, you're fat, be grateful. That's not empowering. I'm sorry, I find that insulting. Is she meant to say, oh my god, thank you for giving me attention because she's lucky she's getting it at all? I really thought that season 2 would be about Kat realizing, wow, this is really draining. Like, I'm just gonna do what I want to do, or I don't need a boyfriend to feel good. I don't need whatever, something like that. But instead, we barely see Kat in season 2, and a lot of the narrative is around her not feeling happy in her relationship with Ethan and kind of being a jerk to him, and it just wasn't really what I wanted to see for her. I wanted her to genuinely break the stereotypes of the insecure fat girl and just do something different. I'm just saying, I think Kat could be so powerful as a character, and sure, her storylines weren't terrible, but they weren't great either. They were pretty bad, and I think she deserves better and she could do better. As for Jules, our trans character, they were very not on it with how they treated her in season 2. Like, season 1 was a really good setup for her. In season 2, Jules can be quite mean and unpleasant, and that just wasn't what I wanted to see for her. That wasn't what I envisioned for her future as a character. And she has this whole thing of being seduced by Elliot and being a bit interested in him, which made me extremely uncomfortable because the whole point is that her and Rue are in a relationship as two girls because they like each other, and Jules had only just become comfortable with accepting the fact that she liked Rue and wanted to be with her, and now this dude comes along like, hey girls, why can't you share the love? And he's flirting with both of them, and I was like, oh, what? Why is this dude coming in and breaking up with this cute relationship? It just brings her back to square one again and really invalidates the whole point of her story. And it's creepy, it's kind of fetishizing it a bit, like we don't need him there. Also, McKay, our main black character, literally doesn't exist in season 2, so that's just great. In season 1, he was like really brutally attacked, assaulted, and that was just skimmed over. And then in season 2, he's just completely disregarded. Was he a douche? Yes. He's not as bad as Nate, obviously, but I really wasn't a fan. But I still think he should have been included in season 2. The writer of the show is a white man. How much can he really know? But yeah, now in terms of the spicy Latina trope, now I've talked about general diversity issues in the show. This is something that 100% plays into Maddy's character. It's not the worst I've seen, but like it is there, you can't miss it. On tvtropes.org, like as a summary, it said, Latina women in media, particularly American media, are usually portrayed as sultry temptresses with fierce tempers, and in modern portrayals this character is very hot-blooded and confrontational, and oftentimes has a rough background where they had to learn to defend themselves. They usually display a quality of having a soft side that occasionally peeks out from their tough exterior. That's fucking Maddy, isn't it? If not tomboyish, she's usually wearing a lot of sexy tight clothing, and she would happen to be very flirty. Is that Maddy or is that not Maddy? I'm sorry, that's freaking Maddy. And also they keep telling us that Maddy's really scary and aggressive, and I'm like, I'm sorry, she's tiny and adorable. How scary can she actually be? And why are they pushing so hard that she's gonna go around attacking girls at school or slamming their heads into lockers? Even when Maddy found out about Cassie and Nate, I was expecting more emotion, like episodes of her having a mental breakdown, crying, but instead she's more like, oh my god, oh fuck you. She goes to anger. As much of a power move as that is, you have to admit they're not allowing her to be particularly vulnerable vulnerable and soft and to be like taken care of. And 100% you see that with black women in the media too. It didn't need to be like that. And there was only really 1 or 2 scenes where she properly like broke down and cried. Compare that to Cassie crying every 2 minutes, you know, there's a big difference. And I really hope that you guys don't mind that I'm speaking on this, because I'm 100% aware. I only know as much as I know. I'm a white woman. I'm conscious of this, but at the same time, if this is an entire video about Maddy and her fashion and her personality and all this, it would feel extremely weird to me to not mention this. The first time that I realized this was a problem with Maddy's character was when I saw this video from The Take, and I'll link it, and it reminded me of it because I was also watching Desperate Housewives, and there were a few things that were going on with Eva Longoria's character of Gabby where I was like, is this the spicy Latina tropes? I'm starting to notice it now, especially like in older shows. Also, Maddy loses her virginity to an older guy who took advantage of her, but apparently it's in an empowered way. And I mentioned this like a year or 2 ago when I did my season 1 video, how much that pissed me off and how disgusting it was. They literally say, yeah, she was 14, he was like 40, but she was the one in control. And then they just move on like it's not a big deal. What the hell? No, she was violated. You cannot tell me she had any choice in the matter. Euphoria often does this where they present teenagers having sex with adults as something that's like badass or a power move, and it's just not. You're being taken advantage of, sorry. The show acts as if they have some sort of autonomy in the matter. So the point is, the show never really addresses that a teenager is actually not capable of fully consenting to doing that with an adult. And also the excessive nudity, which is a bit odd considering the actors are obviously allowed to do that because they're grown, but then they're playing characters that are meant to be underage. However, one thing I do like is that the sex scenes that are present between like Maddy and Nate, for example, they're not romanticized, they're not seen as beautiful. It's clear that there's a weird power dynamic going on, and often she's there to serve his needs, and it kind of highlights that this isn't a relationship you should want, because the whole thing honestly looks very unpleasant and quite uncomfortable. The final thing I want to talk about is Maddy's style and makeup, because other shows seriously need to pay attention, like Fate the Winx Saga, and do this because the fashion is freaking amazing, and Maddy 100% has some of the best outfits in the whole show. Her style very much reflects that she does what she wants. She doesn't care if it's popular or not, she sets the trends. And actually this show reflected fashion trends in real life because it was so influential, which I'm not surprised by. I know Emily in Paris did as well, actually. The search for heart prints went up by like 40%. It's quite funny. I think people genuinely get inspired by what they see on TV. Maddy in season 1 had a lot of the most beautiful, like glittery eyeshadow and crystals and gemstones on her eyelids, and she did tone that down in season 2, so maybe it's meant to show that she's growing up a bit. And it's funny that Maddy's doing her own thing with her clothes, and then Cassie's there copying her all the time, which again shows the lack of confidence. Like, you don't ever see Maddy copying Cassie's style. Why would she? With the fashion, it's actually so important because it gives you insight into what the creators are trying to tell you about the story or what they're trying to symbolize. Also, Donnie Davy, the incredible makeup artist, said, I designed her makeup to have a fantastical element to it, because despite her fierce outward personality, Maddy is a diehard romantic. And I think that's really clever, and that explains why she does those glittery looks or whatever, because it's meant to show that she's actually a real softie underneath, which she totally is. So now I'm going to talk you through an incredible analysis of Maddy's style by Fragment Archives on Instagram. I'll link them down below. I know so many millions of people won't have seen this resource and you wouldn't know, so I feel like I actually need to share it with you because like it's so interesting. It's just really beautiful. So they said that Maddy's style evolution is characterized by her confidence, and her outfits are always a direct reflection of her mood. Her cutouts getting bolder and eyeliner getting sharper in season 2 shows how her confidence is growing. She said, Nate ruins my confidence, and so you can see in her outfits in season 2 that Maddy is even more unapologetically herself, and her confidence is portrayed by her new style. She has a new sense of independence and freedom, because it's as if she's saying, fuck you, Nate, I'm gonna wear what I want. Because I remember in season 1 he was getting mad at her, telling her what she could and couldn't wear, and now she's like being even more outrageous. She's like, you can't stop me. She often tries to recreate runaway looks and is heavily inspired by glam 90s runaway. Heidi Bivens for Vogue said her vibe this season is definitely darker. She's feeling more grown up, she's imagining herself in the next chapter of her life, and she's a little bit more mature. Maddy wears a lot of black in season 2. Using black on Maddy makes her seem tougher, as her character has been through a lot. Black symbolizes healing, laying low, seeking space, and protection. And she often wears fake designer pieces, highlighting how she yearns for a rich, luxurious life and the status symbol that comes with it. She wants people to think she's put together, revealing how much thought and structure she puts into her wardrobe, and that's why she wears matching sets. Her looks are one of the few things Maddy can control. It highlights how meticulous she is and speaks to her level of self-care and how she craves stability. Her style is one that is very polished and put together. She spends time working on her looks because she sees herself as Queen Bee. Her outfits are strategic and attention-grabbing. She likes to stand out, and its revealing nature speaks to her confidence and comfortableness with her body. She's not afraid to use her femininity as a weapon. Maddy is completely aware of her sex appeal and uses it to her advantage. In season 2, Maddy's makeup is more minimalist and incorporates more subtle, neutral tones. All of this reflects her character journey as she becomes more mature. Her eyeliner is as sharp as her personality and insults, and her double wings, so the eyeliner on the top and then the one on the bottom, parallels how Cassie tries to mirror her this season, which blew my mind reading that. Maddy uses makeup as an armor and as a means of surviving each day. Maddy color coordinates her makeup looks to her outfits, which tells us she's calculating. It also reflects the mood she's in. For instance, pink liner when she's talking about love and getting back with Nate. Maddy likes to be the center of attention. For instance, with her cheerleader makeup, she's supposed to be in uniform with the other girls, but her makeup sets her apart. Also, Maddy's perfectly matte foundation foils Cassie's dewy and anxiety-ridden complexion, because Cassie always looked sweaty in season 2, which obviously she was anxious, right? So she's sweating a lot. Then you know how she tried on that purple dress, like Samantha's purple gown, when she was babysitting, and she was like admiring herself and trying on all her clothes? It says that that's meant to be like her imitating Samantha and wanting to be like her in the future, being inspired by her. Norman Norrell's mermaid gowns were a defining moment in the 1960s fashion, representing elegance, wealth, and style. This dress symbolizes everything Maddy wants to be in the lifestyle she longs for. This dress becomes a symbol of her newfound independence and self-resilience. It's reminiscent of her season 1 colors, because she wore purple all the time in season 1, right? Because she's royalty, she's the queen. So it symbolizes how Maddy's slowly taking back control of her own life and choices after everything that's happened to her with Nate. She's making plans to leave town. Samantha helps Maddy realize that there is a much healthier romantic love beyond Nate and that she is deserving of it. She doesn't need Nate to give her the life she wants. She can do it herself. And that's why Maddy starts wearing more sophisticated pieces in season 2 to try and imitate Samantha through the way she dresses, and by extension, imitate the life she wants for herself. She's more mature and wise. Heidi Bivens says, the closet montage was Maddy envisaging her ideal self in a materialistic sense, projecting this idea that this could be her. Maddy seems to idolize powerful and glamorous women, which is why she often tries to emulate them via her clothing and makeup. With the amount of referencing she does in her clothes, it's clear that she's studied these women, and her outfits make references to various icons from the 90s and 2000s. The 2000s were a time when people realized that you could become famous for doing nothing except for documenting your life, which is very fitting for Maddy, since in her backstory episode we see her watching reality TV as a child. While Rue narrates, Maddy realizes how much she liked not doing anything. She never really had any desire to have a career or job. In season 1, Maddy wore pink only around Nate, so this hyper-femininity to try and please him, and she was combining her innocence and sexuality to get what she wanted from him, and that's why she was wearing a lot of purple, but like light purple, as if she didn't want to be too bold, and she was like toning down her personality to try and please him. And she often had cherry print, which is associated with the idea of purity and desirability, so again, her trying to seem more like innocent and beautiful. She also wore some animal prints, which activate a subconscious and instinctual fear response in the brain, speaking to her fierceness and confrontational personality, as she admits she loves a good fight. Her color palette immediately changes after Nate abuses her, and she starts wearing like baggy hoodies and dark blue, symbolizing how her view of the world is now less colorful. The baggier silhouette shows how Nate's taken away her confidence. Then in season 2, Maddy wears black to show that she's mourning the end of her relationship with Cassie and Nate and the trauma she's trying to process. And then she starts wearing flower prints, which are sweet and feminine, which highlights maybe her temptation to get back with him or thinking about romance. If she ever wears pops of blue, that becomes a physical manifestation of her need for Nate seeping through, because often he's in blue, right? It shows that she's not completely over Nate. But then in the final scene, and in another few scenes, like I think when she's maybe talking to Nate, she's wearing light green, which shows Maddy Maddy's growth away from Nate, because green represents growth and rebirth, hope for the future. And it's very distinctive when you see that, because I remember in the final fight scene, she was wearing that beautiful light green jumpsuit, and I thought, what a beautiful color on her, but she doesn't wear that very often. What's going on? So yeah, 100% it was intentional to be like, oh look, she's like growing onto new and better things. That was my Maddy from Euphoria analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe and give this video a big thumbs up and join the family. Get here before 40,000 subscribers. I can't believe there are so many of you guys. That's freaking amazing. And let me know if you want to see more character analysis videos from me. I know you loved my Pretty Little Liars character analysis videos. I love you guys. Have an amazing day or night, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you for my next video. Mwah.